Hi everyone, I am Allie Buchman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I am going to be doing a bracelet for you today that I am calling the Kiss or the Bizou. So this bracelet is going to be using some Baguette cup chain. So hence the kind of Bizou, the Kiss name, kind of has that French naming in there. And it's an unusual bracelet because this cup chain is kind of rare. We decided to get it in and carry it. Again, it is called Baguette chain, and it is a crystal chain that is manufactured by Preciosa. It's more of a vintage style of chain, and we'll be selling it per inch. If you need any of the materials for this Bizou bracelet, you can look on the left-hand side here. We'll do a couple drop downs for you to links for the different materials to use in the bracelet. If you don't see the links there, especially if on a mobile or sometimes a iPad or something, look underneath the video. There's a description of the video and what it's about, and there's little down arrows. Those little down arrows, if you press them, they say show more, and that will kind of expand that whole box and give you links to all of these materials that you can purchase from me online. So for the Bizou bracelet, we are going to be using, again, that Baguette cup chain. The Baguette cup chain, I have approximately 6 inches, which is approximately 16 of your little cups there of that nice rectangular crystal. In addition to the cup chain, we need to make a backing for the bracelet. The backing is going to be done on a foundation of check tiles. These are the metallic aqua tiles that I'll be using. Here on the sample piece, I did the opaque gray luster tiles. You only see the tiles a very slight amount on either side. That's why I'm going brighter than I did for the example. I do want to see a little bit of that color popping through. In addition to the cup chain and the tiles, you are going to use some Delicas beads, and I just have silver lined crystal Delicas beads that I'll be working with. The cup chain and the count of the tiles is going to be the same. It's 1 tile per rectangular cup. So if you have 16 of the cups that you need for your length, you're going to have 16 of your tiles. In addition to the base, which uses those tiles and the 2 rows of Delicas, we're going to be using 15s and 11-0s on the top of the cup chain. For my example here, I use that nice champagne color of the 15-0s and then the Duracoat silver, both of the Miyuki brand. I'm going to be using a brighter silver in the 15-0s. I'm using Miyuki, Miyuki coated seed beads that are coated in the Czech Republic, and this is the crystal Labrador color, so it's a nice bright silver to kind of make that cup chain pop. That will be used to make our little V sections here around our cup chain. In addition to the 15-0s, like I said again, we're using 11-0s, and I just have the Duracoat galvanized gold here of my 11-0s. The only place that we're going to use 11-0s are on the sides, and they kind of sit right on the sides connecting our little diamond shape here, and continuing with that princess cut, they're going to connect in on those 11-0s. For my clasp closure portion, I have a crystal cup button, and it's completely see-through, crystal colored. And then at the very end, with some E6000 glue, I am going to glue in one of our 10mm Rivolis in our aqua color. So I'm using the metallic aqua and the aqua of the crystal. And that'll just glue right into there, continuing with that crystal look as I get to the clasp. For the bracelet, we will be using some .006 white wildfire beading thread. This would also be a good chance if you haven't used any KO thread. This would be a good chance to use some KO thread as well. We are going to be using approximately 8 feet of thread, so it's a fair amount of thread on this bracelet. And because we are using some 15-0s and we're going back through the project a fair amount of times, we're going to be using size 12 needles. You can do this project with 1 needle. However, it is going to be faster to do it with 2. So we're using 2 size 12 English beading needles, and I'm going to be putting those 1 on each side of my 8 feet of my beading thread. In addition to the needles and the thread, you can have a thread zap or a thread burner handy. This is the thread zap 2. That's kind of my go-to, and that's what I like to use. I also always have handy a pair of pliers to flatten out the end of my thread after I burn it with a thread burner, and that's going to make it easier to get that thread into your small eye of your needle. To start out, we are going to be building the base. So the only thing that we'll have at the start is we are going to start by having the 15, the 11, the Delica, and the Checkmate tiles ready to go. Go ahead and get those out in little piles. Again, you're going to need about 16 of the tiles if you're going for a standard 7-inch bracelet. If you want to go a little bit shorter, you may use a little bit less. That's kind of up to you. Or if you need to go longer, you're going to use a couple more. But go ahead and get approximately 16 out, and then pour little piles of your other seed beads out as well. So to get started with the Bizou bracelet, we're actually going to start with our clasp. And I know it's hard to see there on kind of the white surface because it is the crystal button. What we're going to do is take our needles, and again, you have 8 feet of beading thread with a needle on each end. We're going to take one needle through one side and one needle through the other side of the cup button, coming out the back side of the button. Push that on down, and you're going to see a tiny bit of thread exposed right there at the base of the button. Don't worry about that, because eventually we're going to go in and glue that crystal right over the top of there, so that way you won't actually see that thread. Coming out the back then of that cup button, I want to go ahead and get ready to get started to do my base. To get started on the base, what I want you to do is put on 3 15s on your right needle and 3 15s on your left needle. Let those drop down next to your cup button, and you'll have those just right at the bottom. The number now that's going to be important is 4 for our Delicas. 4 Delicas will equal about the width of one of our actual tile beads. We're going to start out by adding our 4 Delicas, one on the right needle. So we have 4 Delicas that we're adding to the right hand needle. I'm going to push that needle through, going from right to left. And now I'm going to pick up the left needle and cross through those 4 Delicas from left to right. Pull both needles then and allow those Delicas to shift down next to my cup button. At this point, you want to make sure that you have equal amounts of thread on both your right and your left needle, because as you're working, it'll shift a little bit until we get it kind of established and started. I usually just grab my needles at the end and kind of pull them and make sure that we're ending up even. Now that I have 4 Delicas on, I'm going to put 4 more on. Again, on the right needle, push them down off that size 12 needle, and then take the left needle and go through them as well. So we're basically crisscrossing through the Delicas. That's going to allow those 2 sets of Delicas to sit right next to one another. Those Delicas will work in between the tiles. The reason we're using the Delica, I always usually like to say what the function is. That's going to keep it nice and flexible. If we use just tiles, it wouldn't really have that flexibility and that turn. The other thing that it does is it creates the exact space that we need for our baguette cup chain there, because the cup chain is actually going to be a little bit wider than our actual tile bead. To proceed, we're going to pick up a tile, just like we did with the Delicas. I'm going to pick up the tile through the first hole, because if you haven't used the tiles before, they have 2 holes. One needle is going to go from right to left, and the other from left to right. So you can see a pattern here through every hole of every bead. We're going to have that crisscross for the base. On the sides of the tiles, before going from the first hole to the second hole, I want you to add 115, 111, 115. Then take the needle from the bottom hole to the top hole, crossing over to the opposite side. If you don't like to work with 2 needles and you don't like to use your left hand, simply flip your project, pick up the other needle, and do the same thing. We're going to continue with every stitch we do having it be a mirror image. Whatever we do on the right side, we also do on the left. That's going to decorate the end of, or the ends of the tile bead and cover that thread a little bit. In between each tile, after you go through the 2 holes, you're going to pick up the Delicas beads, again with your right needle, putting on 4 Delicas, scooting through, crisscrossing through those Delicas, and then once I have them crisscrossed through, doesn't want to go through that one, pull the needles down and force those Delicas down into place. You can see they fit almost exactly on the sides. This is also just a really cute bracelet that if you want to stop here and you don't want to do the tops, you could actually do this bracelet. As you see us get it made, it's a really cute, simple bracelet to make. Continuing on then, we add those Delicas, crisscrossing through them, bringing them down so they sit right on top of the last set of Delicas, and grab our next tile. So I'm going to proceed with this, and I'll show you kind of a quick way that I do it, so that way I can work with my right hand and just my right hand for a little bit. I take my thread and needle through my tile, then I put on my seed beads and go through the second hole. Eventually this tile is going to sit like that as we bring the thread from the other side in. After that, I will grab my 4 Delicas, let those drop down, grab 4 more Delicas, let those drop down as well. And if I'm losing you, just go back to crisscrossing right away. I add another one of my tiles, and then my seed beads. This is a good thing to do if you have a lot of trouble working with your left hand needle. Go through the tile. So then what I'm going to end up with is a piece that looks like this. Tile, 8 Delicas, tile. Switch over to your opposite needle now. Go through the tile the opposite direction. And I don't like to do more than like 4 of these, or I'm sorry, 2 of these tiles at a time, because then you get some slack in it. And basically I'm just going to go in, and as my time saver here, I go through the tile, and that other thread right now, oops, should not be getting mixed in. It should just be sitting. Pull that thread out of there. Give a nice tight pull. Then I'm going to count up through 4 of my Delicas beads that are above my tile here. And I'm going to sew down those 4 Delicas. What that's going to do is bring those 4 Delicas right over the top, go up to the next set of 4 Delicas, and sew down those as well. So this is kind of a cheat here. Give nice tight pulls with both threads. And now the last thing I'll do is sew through my tile, going through that in the opposite direction, going into the side with the seed beads. And then I'll get ready to continue on adding my side beads. While I have this needle in my hand, then I'll do the same thing, grabbing on 8 Delicas, a tile, and continuing to go. If that little last minute kind of confused you, go back and just do your needles going opposite directions and continue to do this for your whole length of your actual checkmate tiles. So I'm done with our base here and doing that baseline of the 2 Delicas and then the tile. And again, we have as many tiles as I do for the Baguette chain. So I have the same amount of tiles as I do for the Baguette chain. When I'm coming out the very end of the project, I've gone through my 2 sets of Delicas, so my 2 sets of 4. And what I'm going to do is make a loop for my cup button to sit inside of. To do so, go ahead and add 2 15s on both your right and your left needle. Once I have those 2 15s on both the right and the left, I'm going to drop them down, pick up an 11-0, and sew the 11-0 with both needles going in the same direction. What this is going to do is bring a V shape right above the Delicas, and it'll give an opportunity for our loop to have a starting point. Grab one of your needles, doesn't matter if it was on the left side or the right side, and you're going to pick up a bunch of your 15-0s or your 11-0s or a mixture. I'm going to do a mixture, so I'm just going to do a pattern of 2 15s, 2 11s, and so forth. That way I get both the gold and the silver look along my clasp. We want the loop for the clasp to be large enough that you're going to fit the button through, and not too large that it's going to fall off. Keep in mind, if you are going to glue a 10mm Potomac Crystal Rivoli in, like I am planning, you're going to leave a little bit of extra room because that crystal does sit up a tiny bit higher, which is going to need a little bit more room in the loop to go around the button. Once you have your loop made here, and you know that it's going to go around the button, we're going to reinforce the loop then. So I have my loop, and I know it's going to fit around my cup button plus the addition of the crystal. With the needle and thread that I already had in my hand, I'm going to take it and go through that 11-0 seed bead at the base of that loop. Now with the other needle in hand, I am going to reinforce by taking that thread and needle back through all of those beads, every single one of them along the loop. If you are using a regular clasp, like a toggle or a clasp guarding clasp, I always suggest using a wire guard or a wire protector. They can be named either things, like a little horseshoe shape that keeps the thread from rubbing on the clasp. As I finish reinforcing, I'm going to come back down that 11-0, just like I did with the other needle. Give a nice tight pull with both threads, and that's going to make sure you don't have any thread exposed in the loop. If you're unsure of the fit, now is the time to take the bracelet. So now is the time to actually try on your bracelet. I have a smaller wrist, so it's going to be a little bit big on me, but I wanted to make it standard for you guys. That way you know exactly how many cup chain links you need. So once you have your loop made, we're going to continue on basically getting our chain here, a Baguette chain, in place. Again, when we look at the Baguette chain, we have the chain, and one link of chain will fit on each of our tiles. To create to get the Baguette chain locked in place, we're going to be creating these little bridged arches between our Delica beads that are going to go over top of the sections in between our chain. Our count is going to be 5 of our beads that go between our Delicas. What I want to do after finishing that last loop is take one needle down towards the left hand side and one needle down towards the right hand side. So I'm going down through those 15 O's. we're going to continue to crisscross through our Delica beads. Except as we crisscross through the Delica beads, we're going to crisscross through the first, crisscross the opposite way. Once your needle and thread is through the first Delica bead there, we're going to pick up our 15s. So again, our 15s are going to be our silver color. And we're going to crisscross through those 5 15s. So we have our 5 15s that we'll put on. One needle going from right to left, the other from left to right, proceeding like we've been doing, kind of crisscrossing through. Normally, I'll slide my cup chain right in there before I pull it down. This is going to be our beginning one, so it won't have any cup chain underneath it. Then take your needle, crisscross through the next set of Delica beads. So right, and then left. And that's going to bring you out the side then. To get to our next portion and our next point, you're going to take your needle and thread and crisscross through the tile bead. So I'm crisscrossing through the tile, which is just taking that thread and needle through the first hole. When I'm along the outside here, you can either take the thread and needle right to the second hole, or if you're a perfectionist and you don't want to see a lot of thread, you can re-go through the side beads. I'm simply going to take it and go through the second hole, going from the top hole to the bottom hole, and you really don't see the thread hiding there below the beads. Plus, I'm going to make sure that that thread is on the bottom of the project eventually. There I have my crisscrossing through my tile. I'm going to crisscross now through the first set of my Delicas. So one of those needles from right to left, and the other needle from left to right. Once I'm through my first set of my Delica beads, go ahead and pick up, now's the time to pick up my 5 15s. Crisscross through those 5 15s, but before pulling tightly on those and getting them right down and into place, I'm going to leave a little bit of slack there, and you can see that kind of hanging out there. Slide your first link of your baguette chain in place, sit that first little bridge or that arch there, and pull nice and tight. You can see those beads are just going to kind of sit right in between the baguette chain. Now with my thread and needle, I'm going to sew through the second set of Delica beads from right and then left. The cup chain, or the baguette cup chain, is going to drive you a little crazy for the first couple beads. It's going to want to flip on you and move all around the tile. Don't worry about that. It'll start to stay in place as you get about 3 down. So again, now that I've gone through the Delicas and my first baguette tile bead is in place right there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go right along that checkmate tile, and from the checkmate tile, coming out the Delica beads, I'm going to go through the first hole of the tile, continue with that same needle through the second hole of the tile, making sure I'm not going through my seed bead on the other side as I come out. I'm then going to go through my first set of Delicas with that same needle that I have in my hand, and then put that needle down and grab the other one. So the other one here is coming out the second set of the Delica beads from the prior, arching over the cup chain. I'm going to go through the first hole of the tile and out. through the second hole of the tile and out. Again, if you want to sew through those seed beads, you can. I'm just making sure that thread goes to the bottom of the seed beads so that you can't see it. Sew through my first set of my Delicas, and that thread then is going to come out on the opposite side of the other thread that I had worked with first. When I'm out there, I grab 5 15s with the right needle, push those down off the needle, pick up the left needle, crisscrossing through those 5 beads, before I pull them down, I'm going to make sure that that cup chain is right in place, which it is, and then I pull down tight in between the row of the cup chain. Continue then with the needle that's in my right hand, going through the second set of Delica beads, and then the needle on the left side going through the second set of Delica beads as well. Give a nice little yank. And you can see already that cup chain kind of wants to stay in place. Like I said, once you get to the third or fourth little section of cup chain, it's much easier to work with. It's not feeling like it's in the way as much. After crossing through that line of Delicas, again, you're going to cross through the tile bead, going from the first hole to the second hole and out, forcing that thread line to go below those 3 seed beads if you didn't sew through them, and then going through the first row of my Delicas. Pick up the needle on the opposite side and sew the opposite way through that tile, out the side, through the second hole of the tile, and out, crisscrossing, going through the Delica beads and out. Now it's time to let it lay down. Pick up 5 seed beads, put them through the needles going opposite directions. Make sure that cup chain, that the baguettes are sitting nice. And take your thread and needle and give a tight pull. You can see, as I said with this bracelet, you could have just stopped without the cup chain and it gives a nice little bracelet. As I add the baguettes, you could stop at this point here as you do the design and keep it kind of open in the middle. But what we're going to do is actually add more seed beads and get it kind of to have a nice little almost marquee pointed shape. So you want to go through and continue on with the chain, adding in those 5 seed beads right along the center of those Delica beads, crisscrossing through the tilas and bringing, or the tiles, excuse me, and bringing them to the next Delica bead. When you look at it from the bottom, you're just going to see the baseline that we did. You'll see a little bit of thread here, fair amount of thread on the sides. Don't worry about that because by the time we put in the extra seed beads along the outer edge, you won't see the thread nearly at all. So as I come at the end of the last bead, you can see I have all of my baguettes there kind of locked in place with those 5 seed beads. And this was what I was telling you, that at this point, if you want to, you could actually stop because it's a really pretty bracelet as is. However, we're going to go in and do that V shape to really make that baguette shape, really stand out. One thing to remember is, as we're coming out our second to last set of Delicas, you want to make sure that you still do your 5 seed beads. I like this for consistency, as well as we're going to need them to kind of tie into as we finish up the project coming back down. So I'm going to go ahead and put that last group of 5 in, crisscross through it just like we did the first set, that even though we don't have any cup chain going below it, that it gets pushed down in there. The first and the last piece of the chain, that bead little section may pop up a tiny bit. I've had some people that when they're working with cup chain, that drives them crazy, and they take some of the E6000 glue and glue it down. I usually just let it kind of free floating. As we get the seed beads in, it'll pull it down just a little bit more anyway. With one of our needles, I am going to reinforce the cup button. What I'm going to do is go back through those 3 15-0s, and I have my right needle in my hand. I'm going back through those 3 15-0s that sit right before the cup button. As well as through the cup button, coming out on the top side, going through the second hole of the cup button, as well as at the same time coming down those 3 seed beads. Taking that needle then, I'm going to go through my last set of Delicas, those last set of 3, so that way my needle is coming off on the opposite side back to the starting spot. This puts 2 pieces of thread through the cup button, which is going to make it a little bit more secure since your clasp is usually where you have the most tension. At this point now we get to go in and actually create our little V design here. You can see that on the sides of the baguette chain, we're going to be adding 4 of our 15-0s, sewing into the 11 that we put on the corner, adding 4 more 15-0s, and crisscrossing through the middle seed beads that we used on the little row here in the middle. So we used an odd amount in the middle, so that way we would have 1 that we can connect into. To start that portion, I'm going to take my needle and thread through that last group of 5 15-0s and go through 3 beads. On the left-hand side now, I'm going to do the same thing, going through 3 beads. What that's going to do is bring my thread and needle out on either side of 1 middle 15-0. Again, our count to do our little V section here is going to be 4 15-0s. So to start, we're going to pick up with our needle and our right hand, 4 15-0s, and I'm going to sew into the 11-0 on the side of the tile. Pick up 4 more 15s, and I'm going to go into the middlemost sitting bead, which is going to be the 3rd bead in line of those 5 beads that I put in going over that bridge section. And you can see that pulls it nice and tight. When I'm at that bridge section then and I'm coming out that middle bead, my thread and needle are going to switch to the opposite side of the project. It's coming out on the left-hand side. I'll add 4 of the 15s, sew through the 11 on the left-hand side, and that's going to get me my kind of first little zigzag there. Go ahead and add 4 more 15s and sew through the next middle 15-0 at the next point where there's a bridge in the baguette chain. Going back now to the left-hand needle, we're going to do the exact same thing. Pouring out some more 15s, and the only thing that you'll be using as you come back down the project are the 15-0s. So I grab my 4 15s and mimic everything that I did with the right needle, we're going to do with the left. So I have my 4 15s on my needle, sew through the 11-0 down towards the loop. 4 more 15s go on, and I'm crisscrossing through that same 15-0 bead in the middle of the project. You want to make sure to give a nice kind of pull, otherwise you'll see some thread in the middle there. 4 more seed beads go on, and I go into the 11-0 on the side of the baguette. 4 more on, crisscross through that same 15-0 in the center line of the baguette. Go ahead and give a nice tight pull there, and you can see that fun kind of diamond effect starting to go on. I'm going to continue adding these groups of 4 along the project and go ahead and create that kind of Monty shape around the baguettes as we move down the sides. So at the end of the bracelet here, I have my final 4 beads on, and I'm going to go through my center bead just like I did on the other side, and then also through the 2 beads on the side of that grouping of 5. Give it a nice tight pull. The tighter you pull, the less you'll see that thread kind of crisscrossing in the middle there. And you will notice that the cup chain, it does kind of bend into a bangle, and it doesn't really want to bend the opposite way. So you want to make sure to keep it kind of flat, or when you're wearing it into the round section like that. To finish up the design, I have my needle on the right side here. I'll go up through that entire seed bead loop that I have created, reinforcing my thread here, or reinforcing my loop rather. It doesn't matter which side of the thread that you do this on, the right or the left, either one will work. If you want to even put 3 threads through it, you can do it with both the left and the right. I'm just going to do the 1 thread, and then we're going to hop over to the other side and get ready to glue in our crystal Rivoli into our cup button. When I'm coming out the other side here of the clasp, I'm going to sew down through the 11-0 that we had both needles going through, and get my thread and needle to come out on the side, the same side that the other needle is. What I'm going to do then is sew through my last line of Delicas, and then sew through the second to last line of Delicas, which is going to bring me out so that I'm on the same side of my thread here. Taking my needles off then, I'm simply going to tie knots, sewing the 2 pieces together. And I'd like to bring those back kind of towards the back of the project. So I'm kind of flipping over and pulling the knot as I make it towards the back of the project. Once I have those pulled towards the back, I'm going to take my thread burner here, my threads up, burn down my threads, and then to create a little bit of a nub on them so that the knot cannot come apart, I burn down those thread ends, making sure that I'm only burning the thread ends and not burning any other thread that is in there. I'm kind of reposition my beads there to get my last cup in. And then as I go back to this wonderful starting side with my cup button, I have my E6000 handy and my 10mm Rivoli. I'm going to put the E6000 into the hole of the cup button, kind of spreading it around a little bit. Put my lid back on my E6000 right away. Then I'm going to take my cup button and my crystal and place it inside. Go ahead and spin your crystal around while it's in the cup button, and that'll make sure that your glue is kind of dispersed evenly. Once you have your crystal in there, give a little bit of force to push it down nice and in place. Now I'm going to let my bracelet sit for a good, say, 20 minutes before I really touch it again, because I want that crystal to adhere fast to that middle. And then I'm going to let it sit for a good 4 to 6 hours before I actually wear it, because I don't want that crystal Rivoli to pop out the end of that button there. Once you are done with gluing in the button and you let it sit around for a little bit, your bracelet is completed. And I love the way this Bizou bracelet turned out. The vintage baguette chain style is really, really eye-catching. It has kind of that Tiffany style to it, that Art Deco-y look going on here. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this Bizou bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little drop down menu that we put on the side, or if you don't have that, again, remember below the video that there's the little description of what the video entails. And if you click on that, it'll kind of show you more information, which will give you links to purchase any of these materials that you may need from me online. Again, as always, you can feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates on different designs we do, different products that we have coming out, and just a general kind of what's going on in the bead world. Thank you all that have subscribed and continue to watch the videos as well. You also can send this video to a friend and have them check it out. You can stay connected with us at PotomacBeads.com. You can also purchase there from me online, as well as really staying connected with us through our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter accounts as well. If you'd like to become a member of our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making, it's a great group, a great forum of people asked to become a member there. And it's a kind of artist co-op there almost, that you can see different things that people make, the wonderful designs and the creative ideas that people have. Ask questions, have them answered, help answer questions, etc., and really kind of get instantaneous results from your interaction there on the beading and jewelry making Facebook group. As always, everyone, have fun creating, and if you get a chance to get this wonderful baguette chain, have fun making this Bizou bracelet.